Hello, ladies. I have felt so privileged to come here and talk to you, and I'm just so overwhelmed by the fact that you would actually come and listen for a while. These videos are not designed to watch. They are clean as you go or listen as you go and do the things you need to do. Maybe if you've got a few things that are a bit repetitive or a bit monotonous like there is in every walk of life, you might want to listen to something. I know I have my favorites that I like to listen to, and so I'm holding this teacup so that I won't forget, because often I set it aside, I get to talking, and I forget to tell you about the teacup. Now today, this is fascinating. I bought this at Home Goods, $6.99. Now that's a normal price, $4.99 to $6.99. That's all I would pay for a teacup, and even the Goodwill prices are sometimes higher, but I wanted to show you this beautiful plate. It goes with my dress that I made a few years ago that has that white on, you know, just the single color on white, and I'll give you a close-up of that later on. And it has the most beautiful art on it, the most beautiful art rose on it, and it has a little butterfly there. And then the plate is interesting because there's a tiny little leaf sitting there in the corner, and it goes with this, and so I want you to see that. And it's one of the Gracie Chinas, and it's this is not good for, it says not for dishwasher or microwave, and it has gold on it. Now I have seen these with the gold on it at Home Goods where it's so high, like $13 for the set. I'm thinking they must have made a mistake, and I went in there you know, a few months ago, and I got this one for $6.99. So I was happy to see that they've come down to a normal price. I'm not going to pay more than $6.99 for a teacup. And even when I order something that has more than one in it, I'll divide it to make sure that it's a low price per cup. And I really, really like this. As a matter of fact, sometimes I save the orphan saucers from a cup that's already bit the dust, that's broken. And by the way, you can't repair teacups. Absolutely can't. You could probably replace them, maybe get one like it on the web, but don't bother gluing them all together. It will never work, and then you can't really use them. Anyway, this is one that I got at a reject store in Australia, and it had a beautiful teacup, but it didn't last. It broke for some reason or other. And like I say, many of them just kind of tip and fly off the saucer. And this goes really well with it. I was surprised. I'll put a picture there for you. Now, I'm Mrs. Sherman, and I have a blog. And I'd like you to go over there and leave a comment. I don't have comments on YouTube. I'd like to get away from using YouTube and just, you know, post my video directly. I'm trying to figure out how to do that if it will take a longer video. Usually these videos run about an hour because I found I need an hour to really sink my teeth into a bit of work at home. Get a bedroom cleaned up, get the dishes done, unload the dishwasher, load the dishwasher, do the laundry, sweep the floors, and I need a little bit more time. And 10 minutes, I would like to start doing shorter videos and just have you press continuous play. But so far that hasn't actually worked for me, and so I'd like to start out by saying I'm so happy that you're here, and this is a listen as you go video. And if you'll go to my blog, you can also leave a comment and list some of the things that you got done. This helps other people who kind of maybe wonder when they start getting into the homemaking era of their life, what am I supposed to do all day? And this helps you get started. There are other homemaking videos that you can watch or listen to, and there's several that I just love. I love watching the ladies pour themselves a cup of tea and do things, but I'd have to stop and watch, and I find that with my device. Sometimes I'll carry it into the kitchen, and I'll be listening to someone, and they'll show you something. You'll think, oh, I'll have to stop and go look at that. So I'm watching, and that's one of the reasons I don't do the live programs, because you'd have to stop, type in a message, I'd have to stop and look at it. And so today I'm hoping to leave you feeling better than when you came. If you're already walking around in circles wondering, where do I start? You know, there are people that think that we must be regulated. We must be regulated because we can't think for ourselves. But we don't live by rules at home. We live by beliefs. For instance, I believe that I need to do first things first, the most urgent thing first, the dishes, the meals, the laundry, keeping everything sanitary in the bathroom. And so that's how I am motivated. And I can make a list, but I don't make rules for myself, and I don't want anybody making rules for me. So because I want to live by by a motivation of love for the home and for my family. And I hope that you'll feel like that too when I get finished here. So I want to start with, we always start with appearance. The reason we start with appearance, which I don't always do. Sometimes I get up and as soon as my feet hit the floor, I see something that needs to be done and I'm doing it. Next thing you know, I'm still in my bathroom. So I have to discipline myself to get into the bathroom and only focus on that and get ready, get my appearance ready. And why? Why would I even care about my appearance? Because it improves my mood. If I know that I am well groomed, if I know that I smell nice, if I know I've got something pretty on, and today I'm wearing pink, makes me so happy. If I know that, and I have mirrors around my house, and I catch a glimpse of myself, and I'm thinking that it looks like something to be happy about, then my mood is going to direct my performance. And I don't know how many of you remember having to go do something, you weren't prepared, you didn't like it, and you're grumpy. So that's why I say get dressed, get ready, and you know, if you are a younger woman, I would suggest you get in the habit of preparing yourself and looking nice. There are people that will be seeing you. You'll be influencing them by the way that you approach this job. And so homemaking is not all work. It's also a presence, the presence of you being there and creating an atmosphere by your sweetness and by your youthfulness. We want to get you up out of that cranky mood. Get yourself dressed, and as they said in one of the old English TV dramas, BBC TV dramas, we want to spiff her up and brighten her up and take her around. So that's what you have to do. You have to brighten yourself up, and you have to brighten the corner where you are. So remember that old saying, brighten the corner where you are? Isn't that just a wonderful thought? And I think there is a hymn, Brighten the Corner Where You Are. If I can find that, I will attach that to this blog so you can also see that. Please sign up for my blog notifications, because if you'll prescribe to it, it will give you other things like some of my other entries, not just the videos. And I'm hoping that you will see other things on here, plus my friends. The lighting isn't too great today. We're having a rather dark day here, and but I noticed, you know, half my face is in the shade. But my purpose here is for you to listen to something, so you don't really need to be watching me. And so I think I've spoken enough about bright, fresh, and youthful. One of the things I like about homemade dresses, they're all in one piece. It's the perfect garment because everything's matching. It's all in one piece. You don't have to put on too many pieces. I've talked to you before about dressing thin, dressing youthfully, and one of the things I like about homemade dresses is you can make them in one piece. You don't have to have a block of color here and another color here and another color here, and then your footwear is different than that. And you don't want to look like a, what am I saying? I believe there was an old author of the 1800s that said some girl looked like her clothes were thrown on with a pitchfork. You don't want to look like that. You want to look as refined as you possibly can. And that's why I say, you know, dress in a way that makes you feel good, look good, and be happy. So now let's move on from the appearance, and I wanted to tell you something about the mirror. Have a mirror situated where you can see yourself from behind for where you're going. You're going to get a look at what your children see when you walk past, what other people see in the grocery store. And you know, the Victorians, who sometimes I allude to them because they had some things that we don't have today, and I like to take the good out of that culture. And one of the things that they believed with the way they sewed the clothing was that a woman had to look as good from behind as she was from the front. I don't think we pay that much attention from what people are going to see behind you. And also, they had other things about their clothing that were interesting. And that was when they sewed something, it had to look as good on the inside as it did on the outside, which I find quite interesting because people today could wear something inside out and it would be a fashion, wouldn't it? And all those raw seams would show, but they create a fashion out of it, which I don't think the Victorians would have liked very much. And being someone who sews myself, I don't care for it. So now let's go up to, I want to back up a little bit, okay? And that is how you wake up. Could you just wake up being thankful that you are alive, that everyone in your household is alive and breathing, and that God has given you another day to do a little better, maybe to be able to praise Him, to be thankful for everything. So even the smallest thing, you know, thank God for your cup of tea. Thank God that you're waking up inside of a shelter, a home, and because many people aren't. And for those of you that are having a little hard time, I think it's really important, you know, to get your shower, get dressed, and try to think about things being better. Think about the best being yet to come. We were always told by our parents, you know, well, the best is yet to come, and spring is just around the corner, and that sort of thing, and always gave you a little hope to do well. And nobody's going to sit down in a bad situation forever. Things will change. Life does have a, you know, the seasons change, don't they? So if you're having a hard time and it's winter, just remember, behind every cloud, the sun is shining, and also spring is just around the corner. If you're having really unbearably hot weather, that season will not last forever either, because the rains will come. And so what I like to do, I've lived in some pretty dismal climates. What I learned to do when I was really young, I thought, you know, I cannot wait for the perfect day. I cannot wait for the sun to shine. I cannot wait for the rain to come. So I began to ignore the weather. I would dress the way I wanted to, and I focused on my home. And I directed my thoughts. Whenever the weather came, the oppressive weather came to my mind, I would just direct my thoughts elsewhere, to something creative, to something I wanted to do. And I ignored it. And I ignored several years of really bad, cloudy, dark weather in a town that we lived in, because that's where my husband's work was. And I just decided that I would get ready for a better day, and I created a little wardrobe for my daughter, and I created stories for my children, and I made clothing for myself, so that if we did ever get out of that situation, I would have some things to show for it. Many times when my husband has had to be away on a trip, I've sewn together a little cushion, and I collected these little cushions over the years, because when he was gone, that's what I would do, make a little cushion that went with my home. Or I collected ideas. You know, in those days we didn't have Pinterest, so we'd cut little pieces of paper out of pictures of things that we liked, or we'd draw them, stick them in a little envelope, or put them in a little homemade scrapbook, and I would make cushions. And so I still have some of them. I wore some of them out, but I still have some of them, because I made a cushion whenever he was gone. You know, when you reach a hard time and you're having a little bit of a hard time fighting off a lack of enthusiasm, then create something. Create a card, create a cushion, create a picture, write something, and or you know, do something to create memories to counteract the hard times. So now I want to move on to homemaking. And by the way, I do 3 things here. Appearance first, and then we move into homemaking and give you maybe a few hints or just a little inspiration. I don't know everything. Your house is much different than mine. I deal with some things that maybe you don't. And because I live in an older house, it's a bit run down, and there are things that I do that you don't have to do in your home. And also, then I go on to dealing with people at home. And that's always a lot of fun. And I like to include children, and I like to just include how to keep yourself from being devastated or brought low, or losing your zeal and enthusiasm for being a homemaker just because someone said something thoughtless, So I'm going to discuss that and maybe give you some ideas today. And so I would like to encourage you, first of all, I'm just going to go by my notes, which are really messy, and they're not in order. So I've got this little homemaking section, and I've just written down everything that came to my mind, usually using one word that's supposed to trigger my memory, which isn't very good. But the first thing I've written down is don't create work for yourself by creating pile-ups. In other words, you maybe come in the front door and you set something down by the entryway, and you think, I'm just going to put that there now, and then I'll put it away later. After a while, you've got a big pile of stuff, and then you have a job. You have work. So what I would suggest, you come in the door with something, take it to where it goes immediately, even if it creates extra steps. Now, in the 1960s, there were women's magazines all over that talked about how you needed to collect everything in a basket by the front door, and then, take it all around. And many of us did that. But I have found that it's important, if you can, anywhere in the house, not to leave anything unless it goes to its proper place. Otherwise, you are creating a big job for yourself. Now, one of the things that was invented, I don't know when, but it was kind of a revival of these baskets that went on stair steps. And they were two baskets that were designed like a stairs. One was on an upper part, one was on a lower part. And you could keep them at the bottom of your stair steps, and you could fill it with things that needed to go upstairs, so you don't run up and down with one item. And then anyone that was going upstairs, maybe their fresh laundry was in it, they could take their pile and go on up while they're on their way up. So this is a great idea. The basket never moved from those steps. It was kind of pushed over towards the side, so it wouldn't be in the way. And I don't have one, but I'd love to have one of those. I think they're brilliant, don't you? And so you just put your things in it rather than going up the stairs. You could do it with a one-level house. Do it in the hall or somewhere, or by the front door. Stick the things in it. But don't let it be, we've talked about the dishwasher and how a lot of people will let it, including me, will just let it be another storage place so we don't ever unload it, because then, that's just stuff that you can just leave in there if they're clean. But what we want to do is not do that, because you need to have that dishwasher available to work for you and put in your unclean dishes as you go. Well, it's the same with these collections of things in baskets that you are going to have to. I have recently begun just going ahead and going and traipsing into one room with one thing to put it away. I need the exercise. I need to go into that room, see what's going on in there, see if there needs to be any. I always smell things and think, does this room need to be refreshed? Do I need to change something? Do I need to vacuum the carpet? Do I need to clean a window? And I like to take one thing, and I would suggest, ladies, if you're having a hard time just kind of getting going in the morning, even after you have prepared yourself and you're dressed, to start walking around your house. Just take a little walk through, and then take something to put away. Just start walking around. Eventually that energy will come to you, and the inspiration will come to you, and eventually you can make a list, and you start looking at it and thinking, man, that's a big job. I don't really want to do that. Start with the smallest thing on your list and do that, and then put an X behind it so that you know you've done something. It makes you feel good to have a list with these little boxes, and you put the little X in there, and you just know you've done something. So do one thing and check it off. Another thing is don't handle things twice. I learned that years ago. Now, we have these mailboxes outside in the country. You walk down this road and you check the mail and you bring it in. Unfortunately, you set it down. But what you should do is sort it into the trash can and into the office where it goes. Bills go where they go, and personal letters go where they go, and the trash goes where they go. And don't leave piles like that around. I once had someone staying with us, and they had their mail directed to this address, and they would collect it and let it sit there for a long time, and we had a big pile of it. I thought they needed it. I thought they were going to go through with it. Finally, I scooped it all up and put it in a container and told them where the container was in case they needed to get to it. But really, we need to not handle things twice. Bring it in, sort it, and and don't handle it twice if you can help it. I know that eventually you're going to have to open a letter, read it, and answer it, so you will be handling it more than once, but I'm talking about in general things that don't set things in places. Don't put something somewhere that you'll have to pick it up again and move it to its proper place. Now, that's up to you how you do it, whether you want to do that or not. Just an idea. So do one thing, do the smallest thing on your list, and then check it off. And another thing I'd like to bring up, I've been discussing this with someone recently, and that is, we get ideas as homemakers. We get ideas, and we want something done, something changed, something improved, something repaired, and it always involves making someone else stop and do something for you and make them rearrange their whole schedule around you. So I would suggest that you become as self-sufficient as you possibly can and get as much of it done yourself before trying to inconvenience anyone else. I know sometimes people will get an idea of something they want to do, and they'll want something improved somewhere, whether it's in a garden group you have, or a civic group that you're going to, or maybe a ladies' Bible class, and somebody gets an idea, but they want everybody else to do it. And my idea is, if you've got an idea, be willing to do it yourself. And if you can't do it yourself and it involves other people, don't be too critical or picky about how it's done. For example, if you want to have a tea time, but you want everyone to help contribute the food, and then you find out their standards are not the same as yours, they don't know what a fresh vegetable or fresh fruit is, and they don't know how to prepare it, and they have done an awful job and the food tastes terrible, don't say anything, because you asked for help. You pretty much have to accept what you come up with. So that's why I say, don't be a burden on anyone, and try not to. Now, there are things, of course, that we will have to have help with, but we were reading, we were doing our ladies' Bible class the other day, and we were in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and it had this wonderful little capsule of a beautiful Christian life in it. I'd like to read it to you. I know a lot of you don't want me to preach at you, and I try to just keep this to homemaking because I am a preacher's wife. I've been in the church all my life, and I've got plenty of that in my life, and this is one of my side interests, is the home and the family, homeschooling, and many other different things. So, but I do want to read this to you because I believe it does have something about being. It's how to be, and I just love it. It's almost like Romans 12. It's chapter 5 of 1 Thessalonians, and it's verse 12 through the rest. And so, be at peace among yourselves. And we'll discuss that because we're going to go into the people part pretty soon. There are people that just won't be at peace, and how to handle that. And we're discovering it as we go. I don't have all the answers. And we urge you, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. See that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. So that was something that brought a lot of discussion on how we could do that. And one of the things we do is we just read the next chapter every time we get together, and we just keep going through it. And then we stop and filter it through everyone's idea of how they can apply it or what it means to them. And we just enjoy it. I do it like I would of my homeschooling, where we would read something and then we would ask, okay, what did you hear? What did you see? How do you feel about this, and how does it translate into your life, and what is the meaning of this word? And we discuss it, and we don't have lessons anymore, and we don't have workbooks or anything like that. We found that this is our best curriculum. It's already written for us, and we enjoy we enjoy just sifting through things and getting different ideas. And so some of the ladies had some great ideas, and one of them was, if you did all those things, you would not be an unnecessary burden on anyone. And we want to share, you know, with each other's burdens and our work, but we want to be really careful not to impose on other people, and we want to be as independent as possible. Now, there are some people that want you to live by rules, and they will. I've even, in the early days, people would come and see me, and they would have a list of how I could organize my housework. They'd make a list for me like I didn't know, and I was, you know, trying to help, but I would say to them, you know, I have my own way of doing things, and it depends on when the baby wakes up and when my husband has to go somewhere, and, you know, whether he needs something else, and it will get done, but it won't be this schedule. Some people like to make rules, and they feel they have to live under a strict discipline. But when you're living by principle, when you're living by faith, and when you're living by belief, you don't have to have all those rules, because you're in the forefront of your mind, you see a goal, and you're doing it because that must be done, and you've got to do it. But you have to have a lot of sense about it. You have to take into account a lot of things. You can't just see a list and just go through that list no matter what. You have to be kind and loving while you're doing it. And your children will notice your mood, and they will think, Mother hates housework because she's always cranky when she does it. So we want to live by love. And so do one thing, check it off, and remember, there are no rules except what you make up for yourself. And so the other thing that I would suggest is to create a reward for yourself. I think this is really important. And you know, we've lost some of the homey things. I don't know if you know what I mean. But you know, everybody's trying to be healthy, and everyone's, I don't know, trying to, there's some things that just have gotten eliminated that I remember in the olden days. The smell of fresh cookies, a little homemade cake being baked, and just the flavor of it. Just different things that we would have that now everybody just kind of eliminates, and thus it lacks the hominess, because you don't get the scent and the smell and just the whole feeling. And I even bought a book one time about cakes, because it was old-fashioned cakes, because our mothers had a spoon, a wooden spoon, and they would beat the cake themselves, and they didn't use a mixer at first before the mixers came out. And they would say, well, any weight they would gain by eating that piece of cake fresh out of the oven would be lost if they would just mix it by hand. And I thought that was so cute. And so the other day, you know, the house was cleaned up, and we had a nice healthy dinner, and I just got this feeling that, I don't know, I just wanted to have a cake, just a little tiny yellow cake. And there was a recipe in an old cookbook that I had that was called a cream cake or dinette cake or something like that. It was only one layer. It was just a very small layer. And so I made that cake, and I wanted to tell you about 3 flours that don't have bromide in them. You want to look that up. They're unbromated. It's an additive that is, I guess, not good for you. But anyway, one is King Arthur. And King Arthur and all these brands have different types of flours. They have the pastry flours, and they have the different kinds of, you know, whether it's fine, real fine, or not, and they're all unbleached. And you can get a white flour that is not bleached, and it's not white, but it's a little bit off-white, kind of soft. And there's King Arthur, there's Montana wheat. I get that at Walmart. That's unbromated. And then there is Bob's Red Mill pastry flour. It's in a pink bag. And they make a wonderful cake with all the ingredients in it that has the nice soft quality of, if you've quit using cake mixes, it has a better quality than the cake mix. And so I just wanted to know. I did make the little cake. It relaxed me as I smelled it. It looked good, and it created a nice evening for me. And so, you know, don't get rid of the homey things in your zeal to live so so strictly that you miss out. And if you're not eating, if you want to reduce, the amount of carbs and sugar, you can still make those things and have that wonderful homemade flavor and smell in the home. So now I'm going to, well, I've spoken for 30 minutes, and so now I am going to just do a little bit more on the homemaking part. If you've got something you need to do, I hope you're not sitting here watching me. I don't really have anything to show you. You want to see my notes? I don't really have anything else. I wish that I had a book that I was going to read to you, but I don't today. It's so far away, I'd have to walk away and go get it and bring it back. But I will try to do that sometime. So how can you tell? You wake up in the morning, maybe the house isn't how you like it. Maybe you want to live better, you want to just do better and have it more comfortable for you and your family, and a place that you like to come home to. And so how can you tell if you're going to get things cleaned up? How do you know? Can you tell? Well, first of all, does it bother you? Does it bother you? Are you apologizing for it? Well, then that's a great sign. If it bothers you and you're apologizing for it, you are not checked out so badly. You don't have the brain fog. You don't have any denial. You know that it needs to be done. So then you know there's hope. If you are bothered by it, there's hope if you're apologizing for it. You know you're going to do it, and it will get done. And number two, do you care about what others see? Do you care about what you see? Do you care about yourself? Do you have enough self-respect not to want to live slovenly? And number three, do you want to have a strong conscience toward God? Do you want it to reflect His beauty? And I often think that homemaking, if we want to do it excellently, it also shows our gratitude. And I talked about how to wake up in the morning with the gratitude. And we should be, I'm sure we should be grateful for our work. It beats a whole lot of other types of work because it's a free work. And you can determine when you'll do things, and you can determine how life is going to go for you. And you don't have to punch a time card, and you don't have to worry about somebody else getting your job or someone undermining your job, because this is God-given, isn't it? He gave you your husband and your children and your home, and it's your responsibility. And you don't have to worry about, how things change, businesses crash, and what you do is you put your effort into it and you preserve it that way. And I told you about that in a previous video, that you make your work and your home more valuable by doing it well. And so it's a reflection. Now I want to talk a little bit about children very, very briefly. And that is, you see all these children that are just they're screaming and they're upset and that sort of thing. And I want to tell you something about this. If they're upset and they're clinging to you, you're not paying any attention. Have you ever tried to phone someone and they didn't answer? And then you begin to get a little worried and you phoned again, or you text and they don't answer, and then you just escalate the effort because it is rather disturbing. So if a child, he'll start to whimper a little bit and his mother won't pay attention to him. So he gets a little louder and he gets a little more demanding. And these children don't have good judgment, and they don't have the reasoning we have, and they depend on the parents to reassure them, to love them, and to be there for them. And if they are a little clingy, be happy. At least you know they're not going to run away from you and run down the street and get picked up by anybody. And so to prevent anxiousness, I think it's really important to be there for them and to be available to them. And I think it's the same thing with us. When we start to feel a little anxious, it could be that our house is not serving us like it should. It's not comforting us like it should. It's not as beautiful as it should be. And you'll find your nerves settling down the nicer that you make it. And okay, so we want to get on with, let's talk about the critics, okay? Because maybe it won't happen to you. That's nice if it never happens. No one ever gives you a hard time. No one ever criticizes you. But every now and then, you're going to meet some smart person who thinks they know more than you. And even the men sometimes will criticize the women at home. They're either, and there's a phenomena going on that never ever happened in the 1950s. I'm not a 1950s housewife. I just grew up in that era. I like right now the best. It's just the best, isn't it? It's wonderful. I love this era that we're living in. The choices are so great, and things are a little easier. You know, I can remember when I wanted to, well, that's a long story, but if I wanted to print something, I had to send it somewhere and have it printed. And now it's just the touch of the finger, and everyone has their own printer. It's wonderful. So we even get men who are a little, this new phenomena of our era that never would have happened in the past. A man never envied a woman for the work that she had to do and for the isolation that she had. Homemaking is very isolating. It is impossible to create it any other way. You just have to get used to the isolation. After a while, you start to desire it because you can accomplish so much more. And even an artist has to have, or a writer has to have isolation in order to get anything done. And so they never envied a woman in her work. They knew that she had a hard time. In fact, people would advise men to make sure that their wives had regular outings, a regular time in town, to have a friend, to have some sympathy for her isolated life. And of course today, you know, it may seem isolated. Look, we can order things. We've got the web. We can talk to people on, and we can text them. It's so much better, isn't it? And so the men, the young men especially today, and I would say maybe some of the older men, they've got an attitude that is totally foreign to me, and that is that they're jealous that the wife is home. They're jealous. They think she does nothing. They think that she's living off of them, and that kind of rumor went around way back in the 1800s. It was, you know, making inroads, this idea that she, quote, did nothing all day and that she was a burden on a man. And they have a little jealousy, and at work sometimes they gossip about the women who are at home and think that these women don't contribute, aren't really smart, don't have any validity in what they do, and they can't understand what they do all day. That's how come I always know when it's a man who leaves a comment for me or sends me an email saying what is there to do all day. I usually suspect it's a man. You have to live in the house for a while before you figure out what there is to do all day. You have to have some experience, and no woman in her right mind would ever ask that. That is just not something we ask because it's so obvious. So I want to talk a little bit about the critic. The critic. One thing that you can ask the critic who wants to come in to your life, or in some way, I don't know, it could be a member of the family, could be somebody else, a friend, church member, and they will say something about your work or what you're doing. They'll say, what are you doing now? You know, and I don't give any details anymore because they'll always have a way that it could be done better, or they have their opinion. So I say, oh, the usual thing, working all day, sleeping all night, getting back up and doing it all over again, and saving up for that rainy day, and just give them a general answer so that they don't give people any material to work with if this is a problem with you. Now, I've heard people say, well, you know, I don't have anything to hide. I'll just tell them. Eventually, that's going to backfire. You tell people too much, and they will spread nasty rumors about you. If you say nothing much, they will spread around that you don't do anything much. So you have to be really wise. You have to be really careful what you say to people. Give them general information, and be careful because even with general information, they can spin it. This is the era of spin. So never let a critic shut you down. Never let them destroy you. If you've got a beautiful day planned ahead of you on how you're going to get your house to be beautiful and almost sing to you, don't tell anybody that's what you're going to do, because they'll find a way, unless it's someone that's very trustworthy. they'll find a way to make sure that doesn't happen. They might even stage an argument to make it a bitter experience for you. So you want to be really careful. Never let a critic shut you down. Smile and nod when they tell you something and say, "That's interesting." And interesting is a wonderful neutral word. Now, use whatever happens to you for good. Now, I always remember the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, who met with his brothers and said, when you sold me into slavery, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Not only was it turned around for something good, because it developed great potential in Joseph as a manager, as an executive in a way, managing the prosperity of the era when in hard times, but it also benefited his brothers, his own people, and his enemies. Now, this is a wonderful way to live, and that is to use it for good. You can take insults and play with them. You can use them for good. And you know, Mr. S and I, we just can't reach our full potential in a home that has people criticizing us, or coming in and trying to boss us, trying to regulate us, trying to live a little differently, whatever. We can't thrive. We need quiet. We need to be able to concentrate on what we're doing, and we need to get things done. We have our own goals. We have our own talents that we use, and we're always working. And there are people that will come into your life looking for a fault. They are looking, if you claim to be a Christian, if you're a homemaker, they are going to look for a way that doesn't work, that is not working, and that you're not living up to it. They may see you sit down and rest and have a cup of tea, and then spread around that you just sit around drinking tea and that you're lazy. Now, I like to confront these people, and if I hear it, if it's gone around and it's come back to me, I'll greet them like, "Hail, fellow well met," smile at them, shake their hands, maybe give them a little pat on the back, and say, "Oh, you're the person that thinks I sit around drinking tea and don't do anything." Embarrasses them to death. They never repeat it after that. And I'm happy, but I don't repay evil for evil, but that's my way of confronting them. Oh, I know. You're the one that spread this rumor, aren't you? You were in my house the other day, saw me drinking tea. Oh, that's so funny. That is so funny. I really got a laugh. That made my day. But Mr. S and I, we can't reach our full potential, and neither can you if you're in an atmosphere of constant criticism. Now, some people will try to boss you. They will target those who are full of life, who are independent, who are helpful, who get a lot done, who are good workers, often are targeted for this kind of mental persecution, where they're trying to keep you from gaining any improvement in your life. And they'll target those who are enthusiastic about life. They want to bring you down. And I didn't know about this, but had I known about this when I was 16 years old, I'd have been a lot better off. Anytime you're making any headway in life or any progress in life, you're a target for this kind of critical attitude. And in a way, it's kind of a resentment of people because they want to be equal with you, but they don't want to work for it. So the best thing to do is bring you down to their level, and their do-nothing level, you know. So I have a feeling, too, that we can do a lot more with our minds and with our brains. We're kind of in a brain fog sometimes, limited by what other people have told us or what we think we can do. But I was looking at a little area of my house the other day, and I was thinking, you know, that would look a lot better if this were this way and this were changing. And then usually I think of it as a dream, and I just kind of go on my way. And the other day I thought of something, and I thought, goodness, why don't I just change it? So I just went in and changed it around. And I also got a can of paint out and started painting a little area that was discolored. And there's many things we can do, and it also keep it off of our list. You know, you see things that need to be done, you start making this long list. If you can see something that needs to be done and just go and do it, that's nice. If you can do that without making a big, you know, deal out of it. Some people, when they want to keep house or they want anything changed, make such a big drama out of it that scares everybody to the four corners of the house. Children all run, the man goes somewhere else, and so we want to be really careful that we do it in a, what would I say, gracious and graceful way, and not make a big deal out of it so that it feels like there's been an explosion. So you don't want to rattle people's brains and their emotions by your own goals. So thank God for your house, and remember that these people that are the naysayers, they don't want to form good judgment. They don't want to form any good habits. They just don't want you to have any, because then it makes them feel bad. It makes them look bad. It makes them look less. That's how they feel. And it took me a long time to realize that, but had I been told when I was 16 years old that if you start making progress in anything that you want to do, someone's going to tell you why you can't, that would have just helped me so much. Instead, as a young person, I was always devastated, and I would try to work it out with these people that they don't know what they're saying. They don't have good judgment. They're just throwing out cruel words. And what a waste of time it is to try to make things right with people who don't want to make things right. What I think you have to do is just continue on your goal. Just continue. And do take time out, ladies. And when it gets to be if you've overwhelmed yourself and it gets to be overwhelming, stop and have a cup of tea and think about things a little bit. And ladies, I hope that this has benefited you today. I hope you go away feeling better than when you came and that you did get something done. I was hoping that I could talk for a full hour, but at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how I can make them just a little bit shorter. Remember to create a reward for yourself. And that is, when I get finished with this job, I am going to sit down and make or whatever it is you like, or read. I usually have a pile of books. I used to do this in the old days. They'd have a pile of books, magazines, and things beside the chair that your reading material that would come in the mail or that you had collected that you wanted to sit down and read. And so I'll say, I'm going to sit down and read this. The Tea Time magazine just came. I want to sit down and read that, and that's going to be my reward when I get the dishes loaded and get that dishwasher. I know one of my favorite sounds is the sound of the dishwasher going. It's just, I love that swishy water going around. It's just so warm, and the little red lights are on, and I just really, really like it. It's good company, and my children really liked it. And so one of the things that I do that's really not very good is every year, Valentine's Day is very close to Christmas. And Valentine's Day in America is for everyone. It's for little children. It's for older children. It's for the grandparents. It's for the men. It's for the boys. It's just everybody loves it. And you're the best daddy ever if you get your children some kind of little Valentine's treat. And so it's for everybody. It's not just a romance time. And one of the things I do is I just love all the Valentine's craft stuff, the little paper doilies, the stickers, the glitter, the everything, and I want to make these cards for everybody, so I buy all this stuff, and of course I get myself overwhelmed and I don't do any of it, and that stuff does not store very well. So this year I am going to make one Valentine's card, just one, and send it to someone. Because it's such a pretty time of the year, and it's nice to see everything going red, and it's bright. And if you're in a cold climate, especially, our winters kind of drag on a little bit, and that wonderful color comes out, and all the red roses come out. And so that is one thing that I'm going to do, and it's just going to be how I'm rewarding myself. Now, if you're not careful with hobbies and crafts, they also become a burden. They become work, and that is where we tend to make everything that's fun. We think, well, if one is fun to make, I'll make 20. And then you become tired, and it becomes work, and it's no fun anymore. So that's what we have to be really, really careful of, and it's the same with sewing or anything like that. I like to sew dresses, but I prefer to sew the summer dresses. And I don't want to sew because I have to. I want to sew because it inspires me, and I want to. So that's one thing that ladies at home have to be careful. We all want to have our little hobbies, but if we let it overwhelm us, it becomes a lot of work. It becomes an expensive collection. So I was noticing there was a lady that worked up at the hospital. I don't know exactly what she did, but after work she stopped at the craft store and she went in and she bought just enough little things to make one pretty card. And that's what she would do after work, just make one pretty thing. And that's what you need to do too as a homemaker. Have something planned that you can make that is not exhausting, that isn't a lot of pressure after you are exhausted, so that you have something to look forward to. I know in the olden days, we just looked forward to the day coming to an end where our work was done and we could read, and we had so many books and stories to read, or we could write a letter, or that was just such a pleasure for us. So save something to give you some free time that is relaxing, and don't make it into another job. That's one of the things we do, and I don't know why we do that. I think it's just so much fun. After a while, we think, well, we'll just do more. So, ladies, I hope you've had a wonderful time today. I hope you got something done. If you could just leave me a list and leave me a comment, that'd be so helpful. And it's been a privilege to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming. And this is such a wonderful era because I don't have to leave home. You don't have to pay my way to some church meeting and pay my accommodation. And you don't have to leave your family. You don't have to do a lot of work getting the hall ready. And you can hear someone who's going to talk to you about your life in the home. And I use Titus 2 because it talks about the women guiding and guarding the home, 1 Timothy 5:14, and guiding and guarding the home. And I find a lot of Christians will be very strict about their about things about church and their salvation, which we are, of course. They're the most important thing. But they overlook Titus 2, which is very, very helpful for women. I think there's too much going on for women. There's too much burden on them. They have to bear children, raise their children, and then they're expected to go out and earn a living. But if you'll follow Titus 2, that doesn't have to be that way, and you can be the guard and guide of the home and actually make your family more prosperous, and it's very, very helpful to you too. So ladies, I want to say goodbye now and tell you that I'll see you next time, hopefully. Please leave a comment. Thank you so much for your sweet sacrificial donations. They're very helpful. And so goodbye, and I'll see you later.